Hey mages, welcome to today's Budget MTG Arena video. I'm going to be giving you 5 decks today that are pretty cheap on the old wildcards. When you compare them to some of the decks that are currently in the top of the meta, I've seen decks that run 47 rares, mythics, mixture, 35, 30. That's pretty much the norm. But there are some decks that run a lot less than them and are performing really well, doing stats of between 58% and 60%. This is what all these decks are. So I've got 5 decks for you. We're going to take a look at the decks. The most rares in these coming up decks is a 15, which might sound a lot, but like I just said, compared to the normal, it's really not. And the last deck goes down to just 3, and it's performing a 60% win rate off the, after loads and loads of matches. So I'm going to give you these decks. Let's first of all take a look at the first deck. The first one is a Gruul Werewolves. Now this has, you can see there, 15 rares in total. So what we're going to do first of all is going to have a look at the rares of the deck. We're going to go through each of these decks and have a look what they do. So some of these rares are obviously going to be lands. Rockfall Vale is in there as a 2-of, and you've got 1 Caplutian Forest. Now, if you've got more of these, I will give you, I would advise you to put more of these in. Swap them for the basics. It's only going to make the deck better. But these, these is what they have been doing and performing at the stats they have. This is exactly how they are. The other rares in the deck, we've got a single Tovalar's Huntmaster, a big 6/6, ends the battle, you create 2 green wolf tokens, 2/2s. When it can flip, Daybound tonight, the flipping of that, it can then enter the battlefield or attacks, create 2/2. So when you attack, you're creating some more of those tokens as well. So it's really good. You can pay for another target wolf or werewolf you control fights target creature you don't control, and it gets a little pump as well. It goes up to a 7/7 from a 6/6. We have Halana and Elena Partners, 2/3 first strike reach. This card can really get out of hands. We've got 2 of these in there. Beginning of combat on your turn, put a 1/1 counters. X 1/1 counters another target creature control, where X is Halana's power. That creature always gets haste as well. So not only can you put something in, you could potentially have this thing come in late game, give it haste. 1/1 counters, it would get 2 if the power is 2. It can just get out of hand, this card. And it's in there as a 2-of. We also have a couple of Planeswalkers in there, all in the Packsong Pup. 2 of these, very on theme with the deck, Werewolf Deck. Daybound, Nightbound can flip over to Arlene's Dominion Fury as well. You can create wolf tokens. You can, for 0 on the other side, turn it into a 5/5 werewolf creature, trample, indestructible, and haste, which is obviously a bit of a beater. But all in all, for 4 mana, it's a pretty good Planeswalker. And, very, very thematic for this deck as well, and suits perfectly. So you don't really see that in any other types of decks other than this. Tovalar in there as a 3-of. Whenever a wolf or werewolf control deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. Now, you've got lots of werewolves in there, potentially to draw a card, which these colours might struggle a little bit. And it's not like blue or black or anything like that. So to get something that can really make the engine of the deck just tick over, Tovalar is an important card. 3/3, so it doesn't stay out the lightning strikes, but does stay out of cut down and stuff like that. So the 1 mana removal. Whenever you kill combat, like I said, you draw a card. Beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more werewolves, it becomes night. You transform all your werewolves, and this will then become a 4/4, and just becomes a beater with the X plus green plus red as well. In there to give a bit of haste, another really good rare for this. Great, you see this in multiple decks. So if you have to craft this, I've still seen this in mono red, Boros aggro. So it's not just going to be a werewolf that will be sticking this deck. You better play this one in multiple decks. Really good card. Beginning of combat, target creature is haste and plus 1/0. And then if it flips over, +2, gains trample and haste as well. So all little extra special abilities that some of these cards have. And the rares are just really good. Now it does have a single Shivan Devastator. So it's a Dragon Hydra. I'm not going to obviously change the deck around. This is what I had in there, but this could be a card that you could potentially drop. It's still very, very good though. It's a great card. Helps with a bit of flying, maybe to get the the final bit of damage over. So I'm not going to say put it out because that's what the stats said. Put it in there. But if you didn't have one of these, is what I'm saying, and you have maybe an extra Tovalar or another Tovalar's Huntmaster or something like that, you could swap that over. It's a way to do it, and I don't think it would make a huge difference to the percentages of the wins. Other than that, you've got some really good commons and uncommons. This is a Trample Haster. Comes down, you can pay the kicker, then it can just come in attacking, which is really good. It's an elf, so it does have some off-theme animals in this as well, and creatures, should I say. We've got the pup. It's a nice little wolf that can build up. Beginning of your combat turn, if you control another wolf, we'll begin to put a 1/1 counter on this, and then you gain life when it dies, so helps you a little bit and does a bit more for a single 2-drop uncommon. Outland Liberator is sweet at the moment because there's still quite a lot of artifacts and enchantments. You know, Wedding Invitation is such a strong card, and having a ways to deal with that before it flips. And obviously, there's a plethora of new artifacts that are just storming standard at the moment as well. So, Liberator could be one of your best cards currently in standard at the moment as well. We then have some removal. We got Play with Fire. We got Strangle as well. What else do we have in the deck? We also have Commander that does damage to opponents. Will then let you cast a creature spell that comes in with a 1/1 counter when it goes to Law counter 2. So something can come in with a buff. Potentially if it has haste as well, like the Reckless, you can come in there and start attacking straight away. All in all, I really like this deck. It's got some interesting cards like this one. Weaver of Blossoms is probably one that you do want to upgrade if you're thinking about it. But still, adding 1 mana of any colour will help you ramp out to some of the bigger stuff. But you do only have 1 Tovalars in this at the moment. The CMC is not too bad. It's 2.4, so whether you need that, you know, you could upgrade it, but it's in there to do a job, and then it can add 2 mana and becomes a 3/4. Still nice stats for 3 mana. Kess's Naturalist attacks get to add mana. Really cool. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana steps as well. So important card, especially when it flips, because it's a buff for all your werewolves and wolves plus 1/1. So a really sweet card and perfect thematic card for this deck as a nice little 2/2 there. But all in all, I think this is a fun aggro tribal type deck. And if that's your thing and you like a bit of Gruul and you like stompy creatures, this is probably the one that you want to go if you've got the rare cards. But if you need to change a few, maybe you have to do that. But this is the one that's getting the stats. And yeah, all in all, it looks a very good deck. We go on to the next deck now. So with 14 Mixture of Rares Mythics, this one is Izzet. Now this is like a... Izzet spells matter type of deck because the main protagonist of this deck is Haughty Djinn. Haughty Djinn's very good. Flying, it's star 4. Instant sorceries in the graveyard will make this as big as you can get it. And then the instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast when this is on the battlefield as well. And as flying, so it's got that evasion to fly over. And that is the main way to kill your opponents with this deck. Now, you also do have in this deck Tolarian Terror. 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery in your deck. Now, we've got quite a few of them. Has Ward 2, so a bit of protection. Is a 5/5. Now, this is a really good creature, but obviously can just be blocked by that pesky 1/1 token. A little bit annoying about that, but you can get it down early enough and start stomping away, and they will have to block with it. So, you know, there is a thing about that they have to do as well. You do have cards like Fading Hope that you could protect your own creatures, or you could bounce something just to get like Tolarian Terror through. So there is ways to get through with the attacks, and if they've got like a little flyer, Haughty Djinn, get rid of that flyer. I always use Fading Hope for that sometimes, so not always good to use it early. Sometimes hold back because the deck only runs 3 of them. What else do we have in the deck? Well, we have a lot of spells. Obviously, a lot of spells. So we have Consider. Great spell. Surveil 1, so we can put stuff into the graveyard and draw a card. Will make the Haughty Djinn better as well. We do run Leah. Now, spells can't be countered in this, and there is counter spells in this, but this is only in there as a one-off. So once you've used your counter spells and everything's in the graveyard, each instant sorcery card in your graveyard then has flashback. Now, the cards you're looking to flashback are like your Lightning Strikes, Flame Best Bolt, doing some damage with that. You got Protection with Shore Up and Fading Hope, like I say, and Consider. So there's lots of cards that actually the single Leah can do some damage with. One of the other rares that you can also get back is Invoke the Winds. Gain control of target artifact or creature and untap it. Now, this is one of my favourite. I do love this card. It's really cool. You know I'm a blue mage. I've not seen it in this type of build before. But obviously there's a lot of artifacts that you can still maybe steal in a big Phyrexian Reforger would be really good, and then getting that 7/7 menace off your opponent, because I've seen quite a few of them around. But you do have, like I say, some counterspell. 3 make disappear, 3 negate, so you should still have counterspells with a Leah in the deck as well. Best card in standard, one of, definitely in the top 5 for me, but maybe top 3. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It's in most decks that run red. Creating that Shaman. Tokens, getting it in there, draw, discard, and then comes down to 2/2 that you can make a copy of a non-legendary. Now, Tolarian Terror is a nice non-legendary to make a copy of, and of course Haughty Djinn as well. So the combination of the rares, that's where the rares are in this deck. The combination of these two is just really, really strong, especially if this comes down to something really big. Haste, attack, win. Rending Flame, bit more damage in there to target creatures or planeswalkers. And then the other 2 rares here, Burn Down the House. Can be a sweeper, deal with some problematic planeswalkers, or you can get those 3 devils in there and start attacking more. Now, this does run some rare lands, just the 3, Storm, Carved, Coast. If you've got an extra one, it won't hurt the deck. You can put an extra one in there and just change one of the islands. That would probably be the idea for me to do with that. But all in all, nice tempo-ish sort of deck. Protecting creatures is what you want to do. Protecting mainly your Haughty Djinn and just keep going or frustrating your opponent and flying over the top and bouncing, countering whatever you can along the way. But yeah, this is a really cool deck. Now we have 12 Res Mythics / Mythics. This is an Azorius tempo deck, and this is about, protecting your creatures as well. So very much like the previous deck, but in different colours. This is in blue and white. This runs a 2 of Ledger Shredder. As 2 of the rares, whenever a player casts a second spell each turn, it connives. So then you can draw, discard, and then put a counter on, potentially as well if it's a non-land card that you're getting rid of. Very, very good card. Also has Storm Chaser Drake as one of the creatures. When Drake becomes a target spell you control, you get to draw a card. Now, you are targeting your creatures with this deck. You've got Boon of Safety, Instant Speed, Shield Counter, Protection, Scry 1, Homestead, Courage that has Flashback, putting counters on and then coming back. So you see the idea of this casting second spells. This is, the CMC on this is 1.4. Because you want to be casting 2 spells potentially to get your Ledger Shredder going, because that is whenever a player plays a second spell, so us or opponent. We also have Delver of Secrets, fly over the top, flipping over should be pretty easy with this if you have the luck. You've got lots and lots of protection spells, bounce spells, more protection, phasing out your creatures, counter magic to, sort of trigger everything in there as well. Illuminator Virtuoso becomes a target spell you control, it connives, get the counters on, double strike, really strong, getting it through, bouncing things to clear the path. This deck is all about tricksy sort of magic, and it's my type of deck. I do like playing this. Bit much like the other one though, you protect your creatures and that's how you get through for the win. Security Bypass, don't actually have any in my collection, but it's something that I could easily craft. As long as enchanted creature is attack alone, it can't be blocked. So you get something really big and unblockable. Ledger Treasure going in for the win. Now the rares in this one, interesting enough, are in the lands. We've got 4 Deserted Beach, 4 A Darker Waste, and then we've also got Otawara, which is a good bounce land, and then we've got a bit of damage with the Iganju. So lands are important in this. You try not to get anything in tapped if you can. Your Darker really is going to help with that. You want your colours. You want to be able to cast all your spells. So hopefully if you've got the lands, because the lands are, I always say the most important cards to have in your decks because that just adds to the consistency. This deck is really cool. And other than that, it's a couple of little rares here. So really fun deck. Bit like the other, but, a little bit different as well. This is Azorius. And if you've got the cards, I would definitely recommend giving this one a go. You'll see the theme in some of the decks at the moment, and this has 7 rares, and this is one of the top decks in the meta. This is in the top 3 decks at the moment, and it only has 7 rares with a massive, win percentage. I think it's 50 or 60. This is the 59% win rate, which is good, but I've seen slightly different versions that have been hitting 60, but this is the one I chose because it just has the 7 rares in. Now, 1 rare land, Otawara, Soaring City, and then 22 islands. Very easy for your land base on this one. Haughty Djinn. Now, Haughty Djinn is such a good card for these sort of tempo decks. You can see you might be able to craft 2 and then have a mixture of the 2 decks because Haughty Djinn is a card that you can play in this deck. You could even put it in the Azorius. You can put it in, lots of different decks. It's in the Izzet tempo. There's ways that this card can definitely help you with your wildcard situation and play it in multiple decks, which is what we like to do when wildcards are so hard to craft. This is the same idea. You literally want to protect this with your life. You've got counter spells. You've got bounce, you've got everything like you have, but more counter magic in this one. You've got syncopate in there, you've got negates, make disappears, you've even got essence scatter as well. Flip the switch. This is mono blue nope. This is really what it is. And then you've got a really good spell in Natali Scorn that can potentially cost you 2 mana like an actual counter spell, the OG. So this is what you want to do. You've got Tolarian Terror in there, yet again, potentially can come down so much quicker because all of the instants and sorceries. 2.2 average. I know we do run 23 land in this one though. Whether you could drop a land, but like I said, don't swap it because this is what has the percentages. But I personally think I could maybe get away with one, but probably not because then Arena would do what it does and not give you land. But yeah, very much like other decks, aggressive tempo. Don't always slam this down turn 3. This is my advice. I've played this sort of deck before. You really want some kind of protection, like a Fading Hope, you know, some way of either a counter spell, because there's a lot of removal, there's a lot of mono black out there, there's a lot of, you know, anything like that is just basically going to kill it as quickly as it can. The 4th toughness does really help, gets out the way of, well, it probably potentially will have one of these in the bin, so you're going to get rid of anything like cut down, lightning strike, anything like that, but still there's you know, lots of mono black removal that will kill this quite easily, so have your protection ready. Card draw, Thirst for Discovery is great for this because you can discard a basic land and then basically draw 3 and discard the land. That is really nice. And the Flip the Switch is an interesting one because it makes a 2/2 black zombie, so a bit more to attack with. Can't block, but put the pressure on with this tempo deck. Not much more to say about Mono Blue. You've probably played against it and realised how frustrating it is to play against. So this is your chance with just 7 rares to get on the ladder and just start, you know, working your way to Mythic with this deck. It's just really, really cool. And as a blue mage, I kind of love it. Now with just 3 rares, just a single 3 rares, it's the deck that is always good. Every standard, it's mono red. Mono red is a great budget-friendly meta deck that always does well. 20 mountains there very easily, and if you look at the rares here with just the 3, you've got a single Squee Dubious Monarch, comes down with haste, can make 1/1 red token, coming in attacking those gobos. Then we have absolute load of 2-drops, load and 2-drops and 1-drops. CMC 1.6, absolutely hilarious. CMC is just so low. This is very aggressive. Now, if you have a look at the other 2 rares, it is Lizard Blade, Double Strike. A quick creature has Double Strike, reconfigure 2, so you can put it on something maybe like Patchwork Automaton. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, put a 1/1 counter in. And well, this has a lot of artifacts. We got Experimental Synthesizer. We also have a Rabbit Battery, a Reinforced Ronin as well. There's ways to do this. High Speed Hoverpike. We can tap a creature, then get through with the damage potentially. And then we've also got Dragon Spark Reactor. So plenty of ways to build up this very important card to the deck, the Automaton, and potentially go through, attack, and win. Like it. I really like this deck. It's very aggressive. It's real, like, you win quick, you lose quick, get on to the next game kind of thing. You will shoot through these. And like I said, with a 59-60% strike rate, you know you're going to get the wins eventually. Just you need the time to play and just gradually work your way up. Easily could get yourself up there to the highs of diamonds and mythics, I think, with this deck, because it's just so, you know, it's just so good and consistent. Lots of damage. We got Epicure coming in doing damage. You got your Voltage Surge. You got Singular Braid. That will help you against some of the artifacts as well. Cammy's Flare, 3 damage, 2 damage to that permanent controller if you control a modified creature, which we can do. We've got the Patchwork Automaton and cards like that we can, you know, get the counters. But all in all, bit of card draw, Impulse. I like this. 2 mana, really good common card for red. Exile the top 2 cards until your next turn. So end of your next turn is very important with this. You only have 20 mountains, so, you know, tend not to crack this off if you can't really play Stank. It's really good a little bit later on, which is probably why there's 2 in there to help you get through the damage at the end. Not much more to say about Mono Red. Ketseek Flame Breath are in there, non-creature spells, loads of them, 1 damage to each opponent. It's just all about damage. If you like red and if you like speedy games, quick ranking, this is the one for you indeed. So there was 5 budget decks for you. Meta decks, really strong, powerful, with good percentages, going from 15 rares and down to 3 in the last. There's something hopefully there for everyone. You can tinker and maybe increase the rares if you've got a bit more, like I said, with certain decks with the lands, and maybe swapping the odd creature. But these are getting really good percentages and can certainly help you up the ladder. And, you know, we've not all got the 40, 50 rares to be able to splurge on Esper mid-range or Mono Black or everything like that. But these decks will be able to compete for you and get you some wins. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like I said, if you have, thumbs up really helps. Leave me a comment, helps. And if you're still here at the end, let me know in the comments as well, because I appreciate that, because that really, really does help YouTube send it to everyone who's not found Total MTG like you at the moment. Sub if you're new. Thanks to all my Patreons. Check out that link in the description, because that's a good way to support me as well. So thank you to everyone that does that already. You all take care. See you on the next video.